squeezes. It's a relatively small size. I would expect a bigger size here typically from regulars, but he goes to 11 blinds. Kaihan calls, and Stefan makes the call, so they go 3-way to the flop. Flop is queen 6 deuce mono, and here's what Stefan does. He leads 4 big blinds into the pot. Okay, so the pot is 3.3 thousand, and he leads for 400. I'm not sure about this. I typically don't study multi-way situations, but I'm gonna run this simulation in simple 3-way, which is the multi-way solver that I know that I use sometimes to run these sims for you guys, because I have no idea. You know, in theory, you could think about what could cause him to have the strategic option, right? So if potentially he has way more suited hands than all of these players combined, and then if he has a concentration of sets that the other players may not have, then it might make sense for this to be a play. We're gonna see in the simulation. I'm not sure what's the calling range that he's playing pre-flop, if he's always calling deuces, if he's always calling sixes, if he's always calling, let's say, ace-x suited hands. So I don't have a clear picture of what his range looks like, but this doesn't seem outrageous, right? It is kind of unorthodox, and perhaps you don't see this very often, but I don't think it's outrageous because his range is quite condensed. It is quite condensed in low pocket pairs and suited hands. So, you know, this seems okay. Matthew Burgard in the big blind calls, and Kaihan folds, so they go heads up to the turn. The turn comes the king of diamonds, and Stefan continues betting here for half pot, which is a really interesting play. I actually really like this play because after he gets called on this super dry mono texture, he can't really expect to have much check EV, right? He doesn't have much check EV here. It's not like he's gonna check and then they're gonna get to showdown and somehow he's gonna have the best hand. That's almost never going to happen. So I think the check EV is quite low, and then you do have some good properties for betting because you're blocking pocket sixes, which is a hand that you don't want your opponent to have, and you could sometimes spike a 6 or a 5 and beat a hand like pocket 10s with a heart or queen x without a heart. Okay, so as played, I really like this turn bet. I think it makes a lot of sense. In terms of sizing, perhaps it could be a bit bigger. I think he should be polarizing his range a little bit in this situation, but we're gonna check this in the simulations to see what's the proper range construction here. I just think that on the king, you know, it's probably not a spot to be depolarized. That's what I would think. So I think his bet here is quite good. Matthew Burgard calls, and then river comes the 9 of clubs. Now, the 9 of clubs is a relative blank if you really think about it. Another player should have jack 10 here. Maybe Matthew has pocket 9s. Yeah, Matthew has pocket 9s here, particularly with the heart. I guess pocket 9s with the heart calls the flop, and then it might call again on the turn against the half pot bet. So Matthew does get here with pocket 9s, maybe queen 9 suited. But yeah, he does improve a little bit on this card. Stefan, not so much, I would say, but you know, it's a relative blank for the most part. And now Stefan, surprisingly, and that's what really interesting to me with this guy. Like he's really unpredictable. He doesn't seem to be thinking the same way that other people are thinking. I guess that's really clear with his reputation. But reviewing these hands, it became even clearer for me because when I expected him to do something, he did the exact opposite. So for example, getting to this river here, I would expect this hand to just fire as a bluff again, right? So he has all of those suited hands. It's nice to not have hearts because you're not blocking some of the hands that Matthew could fold. So Matthew's gonna get here with hands like pocket 10s with a heart, pocket jack with a heart, that are probably not gonna be calling down too often against the jam here. So, you know, I don't think his hand is outrageous to think and consider about bluffing here. Maybe he decided that he wanted to bluff only with the heart in the situation, which might be okay as well. But, you know, getting with 6, like getting with the pair here in the situation, I would expect a very aggressive player like him to just jam this as a bluff. But that's not what he did. He gave up with 6-5 here, and Matthew put him all in. Matthew bets here for basically exactly full pot. And now this is an extremely tough spot for 6-5, right? Again, it seems like a very standard fold situation. Like, what could Matthew be bluffing here with? If we look back through his range, you know, what could be the potential bluffing hands he has after he calls a flop blocking bet here on a mono disconnected flop with a player left to act, right? So it's not like he has some kind of random air calling here, right? He's gonna have Queen X hands, hard combos, and 6X hands, right? 6-7, maybe 6-5, Queen X hands, and hard combos. That's basically his range. And then by the river, what exactly is he going to be bluffing with? It could even be the case that he bluffs a hand like pocket 8s with the heart, right? That wouldn't be unreasonable to bluff pocket 8s with the heart. And then he does have a little bit of offsuit combinations, particularly ace jack off, I think is the most prominent offsuit combination that Matthew is gonna have here. But other than that, not so much, because the other offsuit combo is gonna have is king queen off, which is 2 pair, ace queen off is a pair. What else? Ace king off. So he doesn't have many offsuit combinations here that could potentially bluff. So it's basically ace jack off, maybe some pocket 7s, pocket 8s with the heart that decide to bluff here, and that's about it, right? That's about it. What the fuck does this guy bluff you with? Well, Matthew did jam, and to my absolute shock, Stefan made the call here, and ta-na-na, Matthew showed up with the ace jack, and Stefan scooped this $25,000 pot. This hand, in my opinion, this is one of the sickest hands I've ever seen, and we're gonna